The rain came down like a curtain over the city of Miami, thick and relentless, painting the skyline in streaks of silver. The kind of storm that muffled gunfire and swallowed secrets. Beneath the low hum of thunder, a black Maserati cut through the wet streets, its headlights slicing across puddles and broken neon. Inside the car, Elena Hart couldn't stop her hands from trembling. Her wrists bore faint marks from the zip ties that had bound her just hours ago. She could still smell the sweat and salt of the men who'd taken her. Cartel soldiers, silent and merciless. They'd spoken little, but the one word she'd heard more than once, Reyes, echoed in her skull. Now, the car slowed in front of an oceanfront villa lit dimly through the rain. The gates opened without a sound. The man waiting under the stone archway wasn't what she'd expected. He wasn't a monster. Not the way they'd whispered about him. Dominic Reyes stood tall, the collar of his black shirt open at his throat, rain dripping from his dark hair. His eyes, sharp gray, almost silver, locked on her with something between curiosity and warning. The light from the foyer caught the faint scar that ran from his jaw to his neck, a pale line that looked like a story she wasn't ready to hear. "Bring her inside," he said, his voice calm, deep. The soldiers obeyed. Elena stumbled as they pushed her forward. The marble beneath her bare feet was cold. The house smelled of salt and cedar and something darker. Smoke, maybe, or danger. Reyes dismissed the men with a flick of his hand, never taking his eyes off her. When the doors closed, the silence pressed in. "You're a journalist," he said simply. "Elena Hart. The Miami Ledger. You write about the men the city pretends not to see." Her chin lifted, defiant despite the ache in her body. "You kidnapped me." His mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "You broke into one of my warehouses. I could have left you there for the police to find. But you've seen things you weren't supposed to. You know names that can't live in print." "I know corruption when I see it," she shot back. "And I know you're part of it." He took a slow step toward her. The sound of his boots against the marble floor echoed like a countdown. "Maybe," he said softly. "But not everything is what it seems, mi reina." The way he said it, the Spanish slipping from his tongue like a sin, sent an involuntary shiver through her. She crossed her arms. "If you're going to kill me, do it. Don't play games." He stopped just a breath away. She could feel the heat of him, smell the faint trace of whiskey and rain. "I don't kill women who don't deserve it," he said. "But I can't let you walk out of here. Not yet." Her pulse quickened. "Then what do you want from me?" He tilted his head, studying her like she was both a puzzle and a threat. "The truth," he said. "You wrote that my men smuggled weapons through the port. That I run half the city. Tell me, Elena, who told you that?" "Sources don't survive when they talk to men like you," she murmured. For a moment, the gray in his eyes darkened storm-like. Then he turned away, his tone softening. "You have until sunrise to decide what you value more, your story or your life." He started toward the hallway but paused. "You'll stay in the East Wing tonight. The guards won't bother you." His gaze lingered for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "If you endure the night in my bed," he added quietly, almost to himself, "I'll set you free." The words struck like lightning, equal parts threat and temptation. She froze. "Excuse me." He didn't answer. Just disappeared down the corridor, leaving her alone in a mansion that felt alive with danger. The storm raged through the night. Elena paced the room they'd given her. Too grand, too silent. The walls were white, the bed dressed in linen that smelled faintly of sandalwood. A single glass door opened onto a balcony overlooking the black Atlantic. She pressed her palm against the glass and watched the surf churn under the rain. Why her? Why spare her? Somewhere downstairs she heard faint music, a slow jazz tune, muffled but alive. Against every instinct, she left the room, barefoot, the cool tile whispering under her steps. She followed the sound until she found him. Reyes sat alone in a low-lit study, a half-empty glass of bourbon by his hand. His jacket was gone. The sleeves of his shirt rolled to his elbows, revealing veins and scars and power that seemed too human for a man with his reputation. When he looked up, she expected the cold stare again. Instead, she saw weariness, like the kind that comes from carrying too many ghosts. "You should be asleep," he said. "I can't," she replied. "Your men kidnapped me. I'm supposed to relax." His jaw clenched. "You think I don't know what they are? Half of them would have sold you to the highest bidder if I hadn't intervened. Why would you care what happens to me?" He hesitated. The rain hissed against the windows. "Because I know what it's like to be trapped by something you can't escape," he said quietly. "And because I read your work. You dig into things that matter." She almost laughed. "You read my articles. You're reckless," he said, sipping his drink. "But you tell the truth." She took a step closer. "Then tell me yours." He looked at her for a long time, as though deciding how much of himself she could handle. "The cartel you write about, it wasn't always mine. I inherited it when my father died. I tried to dismantle it, but there are chains even I can't break." There was something raw in his voice, something almost human. "So you're saying you're a prisoner?" she asked softly. He met her gaze. A king in a cage. The silence stretched between them, heavy with something neither could name. Then, without warning, he stood and crossed the room. She didn't move as he stopped in front of her, close enough for her to feel the warmth radiating from his chest. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low. "You make me forget the world I built." Her breath caught. "Then let me go." His fingers brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. "If I do," he whispered, "you'll write what you saw. And they'll kill you before sunrise." "Who's they?" she breathed. He didn't answer. His hand lingered by her jaw, a tremor in his touch. "You should fear me," he said. "But you don't." "I do," she whispered. "I just don't know why it feels like something else." The storm outside cracked like gunfire, thunder rolling through the glass. For a moment neither moved, suspended in a fragile, impossible stillness. Then he stepped back as if breaking a spell. "Go back to your room," he said. "Lock the door." Her heart hammered. "Why?" "Because the night isn't over," he murmured. "And there are men in this house who'd love to make you disappear." As she turned to leave, he added one final sentence, soft and lethal in the dark. "If you survive the night, Elena, I'll make sure you walk out of here alive. That's my promise." When she glanced back, the look in his eyes wasn't just danger. It was something far more dangerous. Something that felt like fate. The rain had stopped by morning, but the house still felt soaked in it. Heavy with silence, the air thick and humid, as if the storm had only moved inside. Elena woke to the low hum of the ocean, her head foggy, her body aching from tension. She'd barely slept. The events of the night replayed in fragments. Dominic's eyes in the half-light, the feel of his hand brushing her hair, the echo of his voice promising survival. She rose, barefoot, and opened the balcony doors. The air outside was salt-sweet and restless. Below, the Atlantic shimmered under the early light, pale blue and dangerous, just like the man who owned it. From this height she could see the courtyard. Men in dark shirts stood near the gates, armed but casual, like danger was just another part of their morning routine. One of them looked up and met her gaze. She stepped back instinctively, heart pounding. A soft knock made her flinch. Before she could answer, the door opened and a woman entered, tall, with bronze skin and eyes sharp enough to slice through lies. She carried a tray of coffee and fruit. "Elena Hart," the woman said in a crisp accent that sounded Dominican. "I'm Rosa. Mr. Reyes asked me to bring you breakfast." Elena blinked. "Breakfast? After kidnapping me?" Rosa's lips curved faintly. "In this house, being alive is a form of kindness. Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "It's supposed to make you eat." Elena hesitated. The coffee smelled like something she could trust. Dark, grounding. She took a sip, her hands still trembling. Rosa studied her. "You're not like the others." "What others?" "The ones he keeps safe," Rosa said. Women with debts. People with secrets. Ooh. You came here because you crossed him. But you're still breathing. That means something. Elena frowned. What is he keeping me for, really? Rosa didn't answer. She placed the tray down and straightened. He'll be in his office soon. If you want to talk to him, that's where you'll find him. Then she added softly, be careful what you ask for. Some truths don't want to be found. The villa by day looked nothing like it had the night before. Sunlight poured through tall arched windows, scattering gold across marble floors. Palms swayed beyond the glass, and somewhere, faintly, a radio played old Cuban music, mournful and romantic. It was beautiful, too beautiful for a prison. She found him in a room lined with maps and documents. Dominic sat behind a carved mahogany desk, sleeves rolled up again, a gun lying openly beside a stack of papers. His phone buzzed once, he ignored it. You're awake, he said without looking up. You promised if I survived the night, I'd walk out of here alive. He finally looked at her. The light caught the edge of his eyes, turning the gray to mercury. You did survive. But I didn't promise freedom yet. Elena crossed her arms. Then what are you waiting for? For you to understand what you're walking into. He stood, came around the desk, and gestured toward the window. Look out there. What do you see? She hesitated, then glanced at the horizon, the white sand, the stillness, the illusion of peace. Beauty, she said cautiously. He nodded. And under that beauty, blood. Every inch of this coastline runs on someone's money, someone's threat, someone's silence. Miami doesn't survive on sunlight and tourists. It survives on control. And you control it. His expression darkened. I try to keep it from consuming itself. She laughed bitterly. You're a savior now. I'm a man cleaning up his father's mess. Something in his tone made her pause. He walked closer, slow and deliberate. You think I chose this? That I wanted to inherit an empire built on fear? I was 22 when he died. I tried to walk away. They came after my mother, my sister. I didn't have a choice. There it was, the truth she hadn't expected. It didn't absolve him, but it made the walls around him flicker, fragile for the first time. And now? She asked softly. Now I use the same chains he built to keep others alive. You wouldn't understand. Try me. He looked at her, then really looked, the kind of look that stripped away defenses. You think you can write this story? That anyone would believe a cartel boss who saves lives instead of ending them? I'd believe it, she said. He smiled, small and tired. That's the problem. Hours passed. By afternoon, the sky had turned a dusty blue. Dominic disappeared into meetings. Voices murmured behind closed doors. Rosa escorted Elena through the garden, a maze of fountains and citrus trees, guarded by men pretending not to stare. Rosa spoke quietly. He hasn't let a reporter live inside this house before. You must mean something. I mean leverage, Elena said. Maybe. Rosa glanced at her. Or maybe he sees himself in you. You hide behind words. He hides behind power. Both are prisons. They stopped by the water. A heron lifted off the surface, wings flashing silver. For a moment the world was peaceful, until a gunshot cracked in the distance. Elena froze. Rosa didn't flinch. Target practice, she said, though her voice betrayed unease. Then faintly she added, you should stay near the house tonight. Someone's been asking questions about you. Who? Rosa hesitated. A man named Vargas. He works for the cartel's southern branch. He doesn't trust Reyes's kindness. The name sent a chill through Elena's spine. What does he want? Rosa looked at her gravely. To make an example. He thinks Reyes is weak because of you. That night the air was heavy again, the kind of Miami night that clung to skin and breath. Elena sat on the balcony, the sound of waves muffled by her heartbeat. Below, voices rose. Men arguing in Spanish, sharp and heated. Then she heard Dominic's voice. low, controlled but edged with fury. "You touch her, Vargas, and I'll bury you where the tide never goes out." Her pulse spiked. She stepped closer to the railing. A group of men stood by the courtyard gate. Dominic faced them, no weapon in hand, but his presence was enough to silence half of them. Vargas, tall and broad, smirked through a cloud of cigar smoke. "You're getting soft, Reyes," Vargas sneered. "A woman walks in and suddenly you forget who you are." "She's under my protection," Dominic said. "She's a liability," Vargas shot back. "And liabilities don't live long in our world." The air went still. Then a single gun clicked. Elena gasped. A shadow moved behind Vargas, one of his men lifting a pistol toward Dominic. Without thinking, she screamed, "Dominic!" The shot rang out sharp, final. But it wasn't Dominic who fell. Vargas's man dropped to the ground, blood blooming across his shirt. Dominic stood still, gun smoking in his hand, eyes burning silver in the dark. For a moment no one moved. Then he turned his gaze upward, directly at her balcony. Their eyes met. Her breath caught. The way he looked at her wasn't anger. It was something else. Raw, protective, dangerous. He holstered the weapon slowly, never breaking the stare. Then quietly he said, "Now you understand why you can't leave." The courtyard lights flickered. The sea roared against the rocks. Somewhere deep inside her, fear twisted into something unrecognizable, something that felt too much like desire. The storm returned 2 nights later, thicker, darker, as if the sky itself had chosen to punish Miami. Rain slashed against the villa's windows, turning the world outside to a blur of silver and black. The power flickered once, then steadied, but the tension didn't. Elena stood by her window, watching the storm rage across the sea. The events of that night, Vargas's body, Dominic's gun, the unspoken understanding that followed, haunted every breath she took. He had killed for her. And now, every part of her life before this place felt distant, almost fictional. The newsroom, the late-night coffee runs, the smell of ink and adrenaline, all of it had been replaced by one man's shadow. Soft knock came. He turned. Dominic leaned against the doorframe. His black shirt unbuttoned just enough to reveal the trace of a silver chain against his chest. His eyes were darker tonight, the gray swallowed by stormlight. "You shouldn't be near the windows," he said quietly. "Vargas's men are still watching." Her heart stumbled. "So I'm your prisoner and your weakness." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "You're not my weakness." His voice was low, rough around the edges. "You're my distraction. There's a difference." She crossed her arms. "And distractions get killed in your world." His gaze lingered on her face, then drifted to her trembling hands. "Not if I can help it." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was charged, alive. Rain hammered the glass like a heartbeat. "Why did you kill Vargas?" she asked. He looked past her to the storm. "Because he would have made you suffer before he killed you." "That's not what I meant," she said softly. "Why risk it at all? You could have handed me over, saved yourself the trouble." He met her eyes then, and for the first time she saw something that looked like fear. "Elena, there are people in this city who've been waiting for me to make a mistake. Vargas's death started something I can't undo." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then walked toward her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his breath. "You think you were kidnapped because of your article," he murmured. "But that was never the reason." Her stomach tightened. "Then why?" He didn't answer right away. His hand brushed the edge of her sleeve, not possessive but protective, almost reverent. "Because someone wanted you here," he said. "Someone I haven't been able to find." She froze. "What are you talking about?" He turned away, raking a hand through his hair. "A week before my men found you, I got a message. Anonymous, encrypted. It said, 'The journalist is the key. Bring her home before they do.'" Her pulse stuttered. "So, someone used you to find me? Or to find me through you?" The words hung in the air like the lightning outside. Bright, fleeting, and terrifying. "Who sent it?" she whispered. He exhaled slowly. "I don't know. But whoever it is, they want what my father left behind." "And what is that?" Dominic's eyes met hers. "A list. Names of every politician, cop, and banker who took his money. If that list leaks, Miami burns." Her throat went dry. "You think I have it?" He nodded once. "Or you're connected to whoever does." The realization hit like a blow. "I wrote about his death a year ago," she said. "But everything was public record. I never saw anything that—" "Not everything was public," Dominic interrupted, stepping closer. "Your article mentioned a shipping company, Sol Mar Exports. That name wasn't released anywhere. Only my father's inner circle knew it. Which means you didn't find it. Someone gave it to you." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. "My source," she whispered. "Who was it?" "I don't know. They used a burner number, encrypted emails. I thought it was a dock worker or it was someone trying to get close to me through you," Dominic finished. The wind howled outside, shaking the balcony doors. For the first time since she'd arrived, she saw him falter. His mask cracking just enough for the man underneath to show. He was exhausted, haunted, half bleeding from invisible wounds. He sank into the armchair by the window and rubbed his temples. "I've spent my whole life paying for my father's sins. Every time I try to end this, something pulls me back in." Elena hesitated, then knelt in front of him, her voice low. "Then let me help you. Let me find whoever's behind this." He looked up sharply. "You're not staying here to play detective. You can't do this alone," she said. "And I'm already in it. Whoever sent that message, they wanted me here. Maybe I'm their way in. Use me." His jaw tightened. "That's not happening. Then you'll never find them." Their eyes locked, defiance meeting desperation. The space between them shrank until she could feel the warmth of his breath on her lips. "You have no idea what you're asking," he said. "Maybe I do." For a heartbeat, the air stopped moving. Then he leaned in, so close she could taste the bourbon on his breath. "If you stay, you become part of this," he whispered. "And there's no going back." "I was never going back," she said. And then, for the first time, he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was the kind of kiss born from restraint finally breaking, a storm against another storm. She felt his hands in her hair, his breath against her skin, his pulse matching hers. It wasn't safety. It was surrender. When they broke apart, both were shaking. Dominic stepped back, eyes burning. "You don't know what you just did." "Yes, I do," she said, her voice trembling. "I crossed a line that doesn't exist anymore." He stared at her for a long moment, then turned toward the door. "Get some sleep," he said quietly. "Tomorrow, I'll show you the truth." Sleep didn't come. At dawn, Rosa found her in the hall, pacing. "You shouldn't be awake," Rosa said softly. "The boss has been up all night." "Where is he?" Rosa hesitated, then nodded toward the west wing. "The vault." Elena followed the sound of faint machinery until she reached a steel door half hidden behind an oil painting. Dominic was there, standing by an open safe, papers spread across a table. He looked up when she entered, eyes bloodshot but alert. "This is it," he said. "The list." Dozens of names filled the pages. Senators, police chiefs, corporate executives. A map of corruption that reached far beyond Miami. "Why show me this?" she asked. "Because I need you to decide what happens to it." She blinked. "Me?" He nodded. "You can publish it, burn it, hide it. Either way, it ends with you." "Why would you trust me with that?" "Because you're the only person in this city who still believes truth can save anyone." Before she could answer, the lights flickered again, once, twice, then died completely. The room plunged into darkness. "Dominic!" He drew his gun instantly, every muscle tense. "They cut the power," he said. "They're here." "Who?" The answer came in the form of shattering glass, gunfire from the courtyard below, the smell of smoke already bleeding into the air. Dominic grabbed her hand. "Stay behind me." But before they reached the door, a voice echoed from the hall, cold, familiar, dripping with mockery. "Put the gun down, Reyes." Elena froze. That voice. She knew it. From the recordings, the phone calls, the encrypted emails that started it all. Her source. Her breath caught as a figure stepped into the faint glow of emergency lights. And she whispered, trembling, "No, it can't be you." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "You know him." The man smiled, calm, almost gentle. "She does," he said. "She always did." Elena's world tilted. Because standing there, gun in hand, was her editor. Daniel Cross, the man who'd given her the story that ruined her life. Smoke coiled through the air like serpents, thick and bitter. The alarm lights pulsed red across the hall, casting Dominic's face in flashes of fire and shadow. Elena stood between them, her heart thundering so hard it hurt. Daniel Cross smiled, not the easy newsroom smile she remembered, but something crueler, colder. The muzzle of his gun gleamed under the strobing light. "Move away from him, Elena," Daniel said softly. "You don't know what he's done." Her throat tightened. "I know exactly what he's done." Dominic shifted his stance, body angled protectively between her and the intruder. "You've been playing both sides," he said. "Feeding her stories while working for my father's enemies." Daniel's smirk didn't falter. "You think you were ever in control, Reyes? You think this house, this empire, this woman, any of it belongs to you?" He stepped closer, boots echoing on marble. "Your father's list was never about justice. It was leverage. He blackmailed half the state into submission. And now, you've got the only copy left." "You leaked that name to her," Dominic said. "Sol Mar Exports. You set her up." Daniel nodded slowly. "I needed her to find you. The police couldn't. The DA couldn't. But a journalist with a righteous streak. Perfect bait." Elena's stomach twisted. "You used me." He glanced at her, almost tender. "No, Elena. I gave you purpose. You wanted truth. I gave you the kind that gets people killed." Dominic's jaw tightened. "You're not walking out of here alive." Daniel raised the gun higher. "Neither are you." A single shot cracked through the hall, loud, final. For a heartbeat, Elena thought Dominic had fired. But then she saw Daniel stagger, his shoulder blooming red. The echo faded, and Rosa stepped into view, gun still smoking. "Get down," she shouted. The chaos erupted instantly. More gunfire burst from the corridor, shattering mirrors, splintering wood. Dominic grabbed Elena's arm and pulled her toward the vault, dragging her behind a steel pillar as bullets sliced through the air. "Stay low," he barked. "I can help," she shouted back. "You already have, just stay alive." He returned fire, controlled and precise, each shot a warning. Rosa crouched near the entryway, reloading. Daniel's men swarmed through the smoke, shadows with guns and vengeance. "Dominic!" Rosa yelled. "They've got the West Wing surrounded." Dominic's gaze snapped to Elena. "We need to move. Now." He grabbed her hand, guiding her through a side passage that led into the storm. Rain poured down in violent sheets, soaking them instantly. They ran through the courtyard, past the pool that gleamed red in the emergency lights. Behind them, glass shattered, more men pouring out into the rain. "Go!" Dominic ordered. "There's a tunnel by the cliffs." But when Elena turned, Daniel was already there. Blood streaked his arm, but his aim was steady. The gun pointed directly at Dominic. "End of the road," Daniel said, breath ragged. "You think you can run from what your family built? You think she can save you?" He looked at Elena, eyes burning with something twisted and familiar. "You loved the story more than you ever loved the truth. And the story ends with him dead." The rain hissed like applause as his finger tightened on the trigger. Elena didn't think, she moved. She lunged between them, shoving Dominic sideways just as the gun fired. The bullet tore through her shoulder. The sound that followed, Dominic's voice breaking into a roar, was worse than the pain. He fired twice. Daniel collapsed onto the wet stone, motionless, the rain washing crimson away from his body. Elena. Dominic's arms caught her before she hit the ground. Stay with me. Her vision blurred. It's okay, she whispered, the rain mixing with the blood running down her arm. You're safe now. Don't you dare say that. His voice cracked. I've spent my whole life fighting ghosts. Don't become one of them. She tried to smile. Guess I finally got my story. He pressed his forehead to hers. You're not dying for this. She felt the tremor in his hands, the man who never shook, undone by her bleeding against him. Rosa appeared through the storm, dragging a duffel and shouting over the thunder. Boats ready. We've got 3 minutes before the Coast Guards arrive. Dominic lifted Elena into his arms, carrying her through the rain toward the docks. The sea crashed against the rocks, black and wild. Lightning flashed, revealing the small motorboat waiting below. Put her down, Rosa urged. She needs pressure on the wound. But Dominic didn't listen. He held Elena close, his jaw clenched. We're leaving. Now. Rosa jumped into the boat first. Dominic followed, laying Elena carefully on a tarp as the engines roared to life. They cut across the water, the storm swallowing them whole. Elena fought to keep her eyes open. You can still go back, she whispered weakly. You can fix it. He shook his head. There's no going back. Not after tonight. You killed him. He was never going to stop. None of them will. His voice was hollow. But I can end it before it spreads. The rain softened slightly, though the sea was still fierce. He pulled her closer, wrapping his jacket around her to keep her warm. Stay with me, he murmured. Just a little longer. Her hand trembled against his chest. Dominic. The list. He looked down at her, rain dripping from his hair. What about it? She met his eyes, her voice faint but certain. Daniel didn't come for that list. He came for something else. Someone else. He frowned. What do you mean? Her gaze drifted toward the storm behind them. Your father. He wasn't trying to destroy the city. He was trying to hide someone. Protect someone. His pulse stilled. Who? Before she could answer, the boat jerked violently, a blast erupting from the cliffs behind them. The villa was on fire. The sky glowed orange, swallowing the night. Dominic turned, shock cutting through the exhaustion. They blew it up. Rosa's voice broke. The list's gone. Elena's breath hitched. Then it's over. But Dominic shook his head, his voice low, haunted. No. If they destroyed the list, it's because they already have what they need. Her eyes fluttered, pain washing over her. Dominic. What if your father wasn't hiding names? He looked at her, confused. What are you saying? Her lips trembled. What if he was hiding bloodlines? Before he could ask what she meant, her eyes closed. Elena. He held her face, rain and tears indistinguishable now. The waves crashed harder, the wind howled. Rosa shouted coordinates into the radio. Her voice distant under the chaos. Dominic's heart hammered against the truth, forming like lightning in his mind. Flashes of memory, fragments of his father's dying words. The truth isn't in the names, Dom. It's in the blood. He stared at Elena, at the faint scar above her eyebrow, the shape of her jaw, and for the first time the realization struck him with full, shattering force. She wasn't brought here by chance. She was born into it. Dawn broke over the Atlantic like a wound, crimson, raw, and silent. The storm had passed, leaving the world rinsed and trembling. Smoke still rose from the direction of the Reyes estate, a ghostly reminder of everything that had burned. The boat drifted near a stretch of mangrove-lined coast south of Key Largo. Dominic sat at the bow, his hand stained with Elena's blood, his eyes hollow from a night without breath. Rosa worked wordlessly beside him, binding the wound in Elena's shoulder with strips of gauze. "She's stable," Rosa whispered. "For now." Dominic didn't answer. He could still feel her pulse under his fingertips. Faint but there. That single heartbeat was the only thing tethering him to the world. The sun lifted higher, soft gold spilling across the waves. Elena stirred weakly, eyelids fluttering open. Her voice was thin, barely there. "Are we dead?" He almost laughed, a sound cracked and unsteady. "Not yet." She blinked against the light. "Then where are we?" "Somewhere safe," he lied. Rosa caught his glance, the silent acknowledgement passing between them. Nowhere was safe anymore. They found shelter in a fisherman's shack tucked between the mangroves, peeling paint, salt-bitten walls, the kind of place the world forgot. Dominic laid Elena on the narrow cot and knelt beside her. "You should rest," he murmured. Her eyes found his, searching, fragile. "What did I say before I passed out?" He hesitated. "You said my father was hiding something." "Someone," she corrected softly. He wasn't protecting names. He was protecting bloodlines. He frowned. "Bloodlines." She swallowed, the memory sharpening as she spoke. "When I started digging into your father's businesses, I found sealed birth records tied to his offshore accounts. I didn't think they mattered. But now, I think he was protecting an heir. Not you. Someone else." The words sank like stones in water. Dominic's chest tightened. "You're saying there's another Reyes?" Her gaze didn't waver. "I think he hid them to keep them safe. Someone who shouldn't exist. Someone the cartel couldn't control." He stood abruptly, pacing. The idea seemed impossible, and yet the echoes of his father's voice, the cryptic warnings, the coded ledgers, they all pointed toward something larger, something buried. "Then why send that message to bring you to me?" he asked. She exhaled shakily. "Because I'm the link." He turned, staring at her. "What are you talking about?" Elena's hand trembled as she reached into the inside pocket of her torn jacket. She pulled out a folded, water-stained document, the one she'd hidden from the night of her capture. "I didn't tell you everything," she whispered. "This came with my first encrypted message. I didn't understand it then." He unfolded the paper slowly. It was a copy of a birth certificate, issued in Miami, 1995. The surname Reyes had been blacked out with ink, but part of the name beneath it had bled through faintly. The first letters of the mother's name, L. "L," Dominic whispered, tracing the letters. "Elena." Her voice broke. "Your father was mine too." The silence that followed was unbearable. Dominic froze, every muscle locking. His breath caught somewhere between disbelief and horror. "That's not possible." "I didn't know," she said quickly, tears spilling now. "I swear I didn't know. My mother, she left Miami before I was born. She never told me who he was. I only found this after she died." He stumbled back, the paper trembling in his hand. "You think you're my..." She cut him off. "Half-sister. Maybe. I didn't want to believe it. I thought it was just another manipulation. But your father, he was protecting me. That's why Daniel found me. That's why he wanted me here." The room tilted. The sound of the sea outside grew distant, muted. Dominic's entire world, the empire, the violence, the desire that had swallowed them whole, shattered in a heartbeat. He looked at her, the woman who'd invaded every thought, every breath. The woman he'd killed for. The woman he'd kissed like she was the only truth left. And now she was blood. He turned away, gripping the edge of the table until the wood cracked under his palms. "God! I didn't know," she whispered again, voice breaking. "If I had, I..." "Don't." His voice was raw, unrecognizable. "Don't say it." Tears streamed down her face, silent, relentless. "What happens now?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. The world outside was blinding with sunlight, too bright for what they carried. Rosa watched from the doorway, silent witness to the unraveling. "The past always finds a way to survive," she said quietly. But you still have a choice, Dominic. You both do. He turned to her slowly. Choice. End it, Rosa said. Walk away. Let the world think you're dead. Let the cartel eat itself. You've both paid enough. Elena looked at him, her voice barely more than breath. You could disappear. Start over. He met her gaze, every word shaking with the weight of what couldn't be undone. We can't start over, Elena. Not after this. She nodded, tears glinting in the light. Then at least finish it. By noon the sky was clear, the kind of fragile blue that follows ruin. Dominic stood on the dock, staring at the horizon, the folded birth certificate in his hand. Rosa had gone to find transport north. Elena slept inside, the rise and fall of her breathing steady but fragile. He looked toward the distant smudge of Miami on the waterline, the city that had shaped them both, twisted them both, and now stood waiting for its reckoning. When Rosa returned, she found him packing the boat. You're going back, she asked. He nodded once. It ends tonight. She understood. And her. She'll be safe. You'll take her to the hospital in Marathon. She'll wake up and hate me. That's good. Hate will keep her alive. Rosa hesitated. What about the truth? He looked down at the document in his hand. The truth dies with me. That night, the Miami skyline burned gold beneath a restless moon. Dominic drove alone through the shattered gates of what had once been his home. The air still smelled of ash. He walked through the ruins, past blackened marble and melted glass, until he reached the vault, now a hollow shell. He placed the birth certificate inside and lit a match. The flame caught instantly, curling the paper's edges into smoke. For her, he whispered. For all of it. Footsteps sounded behind him. He didn't turn. I was wondering when you'd come. A man stepped out of the shadows, one of Vargas's lieutenants, gun in hand. The council wants your head, Reyes. Dominic smiled faintly. Then let them have it. He closed his eyes as the gun fired. The world went white. Weeks later, on a quiet Florida pier, Elena sat wrapped in a blanket, her shoulder bandaged, the sea calm for once. The air smelled of salt and new beginnings. Rosa approached quietly, placing a folded newspaper beside her. The headline read, Cartel boss Reyes dead in fire. Estate destroyed. Below, a smaller article. Investigative journalist Elena Hart presumed missing. Elena stared at it for a long time, then folded it carefully and tucked it into her bag. Rosa watched her. What will you do now? Elena looked out at the water, where the sunlight trembled like memory. He burned the truth so I could live with it. You think he's really gone? She hesitated. Part of him is. Rosa nodded. And the rest? Elena smiled faintly, the kind that holds both grief and grace. The rest of him endures, in the blood we never asked for, and the choices we finally made. A gust of wind brushed her hair. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled again, faint like a heartbeat returning. She rose, walking toward the edge of the dock. The horizon stretched wide and merciless, the same way it had the day she first met him. And as the sea swallowed the light, she whispered into the wind, half prayer, half confession. I endured the night, Dominic. Now set me free. The tide answered in silence. And the world, for the first time in a long time, began again.